and I, as well as Matt De La Valle, and we are here to talk about HYROX. So, well, we're talking about a variety of things, but in particular HYROX. So, I don't know if you guys read the article or saw the video. The video is really, really eye-opening of the sled push at a HYROX, but not just any HYROX, the World Championships, which I found to be really interesting. And then the response I thought was really good. So we're diving in. Here's the video right here. I don't know what this guy's name is, but he was fired up.
It's also like the video is so good because it really is so obvious. Like he's trying to push this sled, and look at him. You can tell he's trying, and it's like hardly moving. And then he runs over. For anyone that's just listening, runs over like a couple lanes over, and this other sled is like pushing a shopping cart. That's crazy.
Oh, he's all fired up. That sucks, man. That sucks in a competition that,
It does suck.
you know, pride, whatever. If there's prize money, ego, whatever, it no matter. You're competing at a legit competition, and to have an equipment discrepancy like that, where one lane has a significant advantage over another, regardless of what it is, regardless if it's the terrain,
Yeah.
regardless if it's the sled, whatever. If there's no equal playing field, how can you say that that's something that's fair? And I get it. If you're in a non-controlled environment where it's like football, where you have like the weather elements and stuff like this, then both teams are playing on the same field. Right. But if everybody's different, man, that's really tough.
So I don't know if you guys saw. So I read the article this morning, and essentially, what started off 7 years ago, HYROX has blown up. Right? They're going to have 600,000 people do a HYROX this year. Gabe and I think Gabe, you did two. You've done how many HYROX have you done, Gabe?
I did an individual after the ones that we did. So one doubles,
Yes.
one individual.
Right. And I mean, incredible experience. But I could see how this sled. So, anyways, in the article, basically what they said is like, hey, we recognize there was some discrepancies in the flooring at the time. So they redid it and they changed out the turf. Well, it turns out now they're seeing like a small variance in the sled based on the use. So if it's been used a lot, or if there's been like sweat or stuff on the actual turf, it's to cause more friction and different stuff. So what they've been doing is when the sled reaches a certain like margin that they determine is unacceptable, they pull that sled. Well, I guess in this particular case, they took ownership of it, by the way. They said, hey, we didn't pull it early enough, and the sled was too overly used and it caused too much friction. But dude, that's a very extreme case, that guy on that video.
I'm just going to go out and say that I'm now convinced that I just got a bad sled in my individual race on the sled pull.
Oh my god,
Dude, I got stuck on that station. And the problem is, I mean, I'm lying. I don't think it was actually a bad sled, but the sled pull specifically is like, I think like very much a skill you kind of need to practice. And I just like, I didn't have it. And with the pro weights, you can't just muscle it. Like you can't, there's like, if you watch everyone else doing it, there's like a flow to it, like how they grab it, how low they get, pull back, walk back a little bit. But yeah, man, I mean, crazy that at the World Championship, I mean, that almost makes it worse, right? But you know, I think that a big piece of it too is just the logistics, because also like you say it's their world championship, but the amount of people they still had competing, even though it wasn't like
4,500 people competing over 4 days.
Boy.
Like it wasn't like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like you're having
it was
50
all the
people
age
compete.
groups.
Oh,
It was all the age groups. It was relays. It was like the elite people. They did change it. So the change that they made, my understanding, again, just kind of from following it peripherally, and this was kind of a big deal because a lot of people make the World Championships with the open division, which whether you want to call it scale, like CrossFit people will call it scaled, because there are the pro weights and there are the open weights. And the open race is the same race, but it's all lighter weight. So lighter sandbag, lighter wall ball, lighter sled, so on and so forth. And for age group and open, they still qualified for the World Championship. So they were doing both open and pro. So the change that they made now that the sport has grown to this point is next season, you can only qualify for the World Championship with the pro weight. So there isn't any more like a open division because it's just getting to be too much.
It's too big.
One of the things that, you know, maybe the dudes from HYROX are going to listen to this. Maybe it'll come across their desk at some point. There's too many of these things going on all the time. I don't know who is like the champion, who's good. Like it's impossible for me as a periphery observer to understand who are the top players in HYROX. I have no idea. And I get it. Their business model is different. Like they want to get a lot of people going through these races. They want to have these races all the time. But if there's going to be a world championships, I would want to know, are there 100 motherfuckers in this thing? Are there 10 in this thing? Like, who are these people? And how do you have 4,500? I get it. There was 2 divisions. Can you imagine having 45?
There was multiple divisions, MDV. So it was open and pro plus
sure.
doubles and this and that. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Whatever, man. You got to narrow this funnel down. If you're going to call it the World Championships, narrow the funnel down so that like we understand who the field is. It's the top. If it's the top 100 people, that would be super sick because then you understand.
But they have the Elite 15 though, MDV.
So
just
like,
for
all of these terminology.
Well, I mean, if you're yeah, I know, but if you're following the sport right more regularly, you like there was Elite 15 that went off, and that's like a whole separate thing. And then you have the quote unquote World Championship, which is essentially to qualify. I personally think that what HYROX is doing is super legit. I think they're trying to do the best they can. The way they responded to the sled thing, I thought was awesome. But MDV, I do agree. Like, and I'm sure it's going to happen. Is like World Championships eventually, because they have so many people now, they're going to need to start narrowing it down so it adds more clout and credibility to saying, hey, I made it. It's like for Gabe qualifying for what was it, Boston, right? It gets harder and harder every year. I could see that being like HYROX.
Yeah, but you're also now dealing with a race that has these different elements to it, right? So this kind of thing exposed a little bit of like a flaw in their model where it's like they flowed too many people through this World Championship race, and they had an equipment issue which impacted people who were competing in the World Championships. Whereas like if you have less people competing in a World Championship event, or if you just have a better system now to monitor the equipment, it just seems strange to me. Like if you're going to have a World Championships for something, like wouldn't I want to know like who won, who won, who were the top people there, what are their scores? It just seems very like vague to me. And I thought that this was crazy if like an equipment issue like this at the World Championships, but we've had things at the CrossFit Games before too. Like we were talking
There's
about
tons of them at the CrossFit Games.
For sure.
But I know, Gabe, Hunter took second, right? Who took first?
Hunter, it was actually a pretty crazy finish. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but it's Tom Weinshank, German, which was a big deal for the HYROX community because HYROX was founded in Germany.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal for him to win. But if this video, I forgot to send Liz, but it's a pretty good video because Hunter did his 100 wall balls unbroken. And Tim Weinshank did not. He was actually breaking a lot towards the end. So they have the wall ball counter, and he's up by like 20 reps. Then he's up by like 15. Then he's up by like 12. But the number's getting shorter. They're like in the 60s. Then they're in the 70s. And he just keeps dropping it like every 5-6 reps because he's toast. And Hunter's just going unbroken. But he ran out of time. And he beat him by like 2-3 seconds. But it was such a
Wow.
It was like fun to watch. Actually fun because you're just like, is he gonna catch? It would have been insane if he caught him because Hunter's also been very vocal that he's been training to try and get the 100 wall balls unbroken at the end. Which, if you think about it, with the type of pace that these guys are putting out, and to do that at the end is insane.
What are they running? What mile times are they running?
Gaining on the German guy as. Hunter was gaining on the German guy.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Hunter went 100 unbroken. The German guy had a pretty good lead going in and was just like, and you can tell too because he's next to him, like he's also probably like getting in his own head. He's freaking out. Like the ball's slipping. He's dropping it. Like, can you imagine if he caught him? But he held him off. But it was pretty exciting.
Gabe, what are these guys running on the 1,000 meters? What pace do you think? Like 5:30s?
Probably. I can look real quick. But they're running well below a 4-minute 1K, and I mean their times are definitely in the 5s, probably in the low 5s, and it's not like they're skimping in the stations either, which is the impressive part.
No, they're going. I mean, an MDV, but like back to what you were saying, because I know you're on a little bit more even on the periphery of like HYROX than. I mean, I'm kind of on the periphery too, right? But it's like I wonder what their vision is for the elite athletes. So take, for example, CrossFit. I think we have bias because of our CrossFit background, where the CrossFit Games are like this pinnacle of fitness. And so they would highlight different athletes, or athletes would do well, and then throughout the season. But maybe the HYROX thing is like, look, do we got this elite 15? And they're going to be like the benchmarks for what is possible within our sport. but we don't necessarily need to celebrate them as much. We need to celebrate everybody else and make it like a thing, you know? Like, I wonder if that's the vision for the team at HYROX is like, dude, yeah, we got people that go fast, but the reality is we have all these other people that are doing this, and it's more of like a marathon than it is a CrossFit Games. You know what I'm saying? It's just a different way. I wonder how they look at it.
Well, the core of their business model is obviously the average person going through these races, right? They're putting 600,000 people through a race next year. That's the goal. Obviously, the vast majority of those people, probably 90%, are recreational athletes. But, you know, from the CrossFit side of the equation and the history of that sport, you know, you and I have participated in this sport in different ways. Like, I was on the Reebok CrossFit side. I saw the deals happen. I was at the games. I understood the marketing efforts. When CrossFit and Reebok were pumping stories about the athletes and content about the athletes out and creating these personalities, there's no doubt that this was the pinnacle of the sport. It was the pinnacle of Jason Khalipa. It was the pinnacle of Rich Froning, Matt Fraser. All these people had these big stories developed behind them. And now, when that media engine was cut out from CrossFit, and you can say there's been other things that have happened, you just don't have it. You don't have the star power in CrossFit anymore. And they are going to struggle pretty mightily to get it back. I mean, I don't think you're ever going to see that like League of Legends type of thing that they had back in 2014, 15, 16. And that was pretty amazing. And not only did it get a lot of elite athletes interested in the sport, but guess what? You had the biggest signups for the Opens in those years. You had 300,000 people do the Open in those years. And now they're down to, you know, whatever. So I do think that there's an importance to highlighting like who the top people are and like creating the stories and creating some of like the tension between the two. But I maybe they are doing that. Maybe I'm just not paying close enough attention to what's going on.
But let me ask you, if you take him at his word, and I've heard this on some podcasts, even during those times, like the CrossFit Games was a huge, like it wasn't profitable, and it was a huge hole in CrossFit's pocket. Like, sure, there was, you know, us looking at like, oh, that was the heyday. They were crushing it. There were so many stories. There were a lot of fans. They would sell out seats. But Greg Glassman has said on many podcasts that, you know, they tried to sell off the games and people never wanted it if it wasn't, you know, attached to the certificate and the affiliation, because that was really what created money. And yeah, he's said that on,
I've never heard him say that he tried to sell it off. I did hear him multiple times say that it wasn't profitable. I agree.
He said that back in the day, he tried to sell off the games many times, and that people were interested until they found out that the level 1, level 2, and the affiliation wasn't a part of it, and then they would run for the hills. This is what he said. So again, if you take him at his word, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I understand that, you know, HYROX isn't all about these athletes, and it's not like you go and you know exactly who the 40 best in the world are and it's a weekend dedicated to them. But I think that, you know, the reason that marathons and Ironmans and all these things have been as successful as they've been is because it's about getting a bunch of people there competing side by side with these key guys from like a, you know, just purely like business model perspective. So I think that it's almost apples and oranges, and I get that it makes
I don't know about that. I'm not saying that I don't agree with their business model. I think their business model is fantastic. I think that a repeatable race, I think that's something that's very approachable. I think that you can get mass people through this in a few hours. I think it's brilliant that they run them mostly every weekend. But these big events obviously don't make a ton of money. Like the CrossFit Games is not a profit center for CrossFit. It was an advertising center. It was a marketing effort. It was showing off the pinnacle talents, showing off the Reebok uniforms. It's showing off the sneakers. It's creating the storylines. It's all that kind of stuff. It's very hard, especially if that's like the only thing that you're banking on as being profitable for you, to run a massive event like that, because you have to rent out a space like the Madison Arena. You have to rent out the Home Depot Center. You have to pay all of these people to show up to service the event. And then if you're talking a sport like CrossFit, the major sponsor there for those years that it was hot was Reebok. But then you don't have like fucking American Express showing up, or, you know, what's it called? Like ExxonMobil or any of these other guys showing up with these big checks that make these other events work. It just never happened in CrossFit. But I think with HYROX, like, they obviously are crushing it with the races and the signups that they're doing. I would just say like I would like to know like who are the top 5 or 10 people. Maybe that's just me not doing the research on it. But I do think it's a problem that if you have a world championships and you have equipment discrepancies and then people are very blatantly on the field of play going like this is not working. Like this is very, very different.
So the article they put out, right? They basically they took responsibility and said, "Hey, we didn't make the change fast enough. We should have made the change faster. We know that this is an area where there's some discrepancy." But I mean, dude, it's happened in all the fitness sports. I mean, the CrossFit Games is. I mean, I have. There's so many examples since the beginning of time where equipment has played a major issue. The most blatant one that comes to mind is the wheelbarrow. Like no worse example than the wheelbarrow in 2010, I want to say, where you would put sandbags on top of a wheelbarrow and you had to traverse or go across the arena and then take the sandbags out and then climb up the whatever. They built these wheelbarrows the night before from Home Depot, and the issue is that there was discrepancy on who built them and how well they built them, right? Because they were like building wheelbarrows for time. This is like, I'm not kidding. And I'm blaming this on, I mean, obviously I take responsibility
Did
for
yours
this.
falls apart? Yours definitely fell apart.
Gabe.
You overloaded it.
So Liz, we got to find a video, Liz. We got to find a video.
I will take responsibility and say that basically what the event was is you had like 10,000 pounds, whatever. You had like 1,000 pounds and you had to carry this 1,000 pounds from point A to point B in a wheelbarrow. Well, if you did it all in one go, obviously it's faster. So I loaded mine up, and as I'm going, my wheel bent and broke. And I was just like, dude, it was bad. It was bad. I didn't know what to do at that point. So
Jason has scrubbed every embarrassing CrossFit Games moment of his.
Oh, you can't find it, huh?
I was going to ask, did they give you that like 10-pound softball? Is that the reason why the softball?
Yeah. The softball throw was also the wrong way.
They gave him like a 10-pound
They gave me a medicine ball.
Like slippery.
But dude, that time, honestly, I haven't even thought about it for years since we're talking about it right now. But man, that one like broke my heart. I'll never forget. You're in the middle of the arena, and my wheelbarrow just bends and breaks. And I'm just like, ugh. Fast forward, they end up.
Keep going. Sorry.
Rogue ended up making a wheelbarrow like years later, and that thing was obviously like bulletproof. But yeah.
Well, around that same time, they also had the issue with the floor being so hot. Remember that with when you were doing burpees on the floor?
It was push-ups. Yeah.
Were melting. Yeah.
They had the first time they had the long handstand walk, because I was an alternate that year, so I was there. But the long handstand walk at Reebok HQ, I remember people completely messed up their hands. It was on the blacktop. I remember people got some gnarly burns on that.
Yep. And the speed sled. We talked about this before we started.
Yep,
remember that angled speed sled, and then
that didn't go anywhere.
The hammer thing. Remember the hammer?
Well, the hammer was bad, but the speed sled, just real quick, I'll never forget. We were doing the speed sled, and I took second in that event. So like I was pretty stoked. But I went earlier.
Got a fast lane.
Yeah.
So I got a fast lane. But more importantly is, dude, the reason why I think that HYROX is learning a lot from CrossFit is that in CrossFit it was always like this unknown and unknowable, and so it's really difficult to know what's going to come up because you're always trying to reinvent the wheel. HYROX, it knows what's probably going to happen, so it's making adjustments now for next year. That will not happen again next year. But anyways, at the games, it's always new. So I'll never forget, dude. They had this sled that looked like a piece of pizza. It was badass. Yeah. But if you held from the bottom and lifted it up a little bit, it gave you a huge advantage because you removed surface area on the ground. And so Dave was like, hey, you can't do that. But it was after the first heat had already gone. So it was situations like that. They just didn't know any different, right? They weren't aware. It's like the spike drive in 2009. We took a sledgehammer and a rod, and you had to go into the ground. And there was just a discrepancy there too. So it's happened in CrossFit just like it is in HYROX.
Remember I think it was a female athlete who hit her hand when she was driving a spike into the ground. Like she split her thumb in half, driving a spike into the ground with a metal hammer. Oh, Noah Olson. This was the one I was thinking about. Remember Noah Olson with the hammer, and then he would pull the cinder block or like the green thing down the slide?
Oh, yeah.
That was a big deal.
So the rule was you had to hit it and not like stay on it.
Yeah.
But then obviously there's like, what does it mean by staying on it? Can you hit it and then like give a little extra love, you know? And so it's a little gray area. But dude, back to the push-ups. The reason why back in the day, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, like we were in like this bank. So they kept us in a bank vault, and then you walked out and like, hey, your event's going to be this. Well, at the time, I remember I had a shirt on, and so I was fortunate. I took my shirt off and I used that underneath my hands for the push-ups. But you didn't know what the event was going to be, so we just walked out there and we were like, all right, here it is. But dude, people got messed up on their hands for sure.
I think this is one of the things that, like, if you could look back at, you know, CrossFit did their best, I think, to put on really great competitions. I'm not trying to rag on anybody who was involved in that. It was a lot of really good work. They're proud. They should be proud of the work that they did. But if you look back on it and you go, man, what were some of the hiccups in some of these events? They tried to overcomplicate things a ton. I think they tried to, like you said, reinvent the wheel a ton during these events to try to be unknown and unknowable, to pull things out of the hopper, to like really what they looked at as testing fitness across a broad time and modal domain, right? But if they just tested CrossFit, like if they just tested 10 CrossFit workouts, man, you probably could have still had the same people on top of the podium. You could have had more recognition of like what these people are doing aligns to the actual training methodology, because it's so far. The game's got so far from any sort of reality of what happens in a normal CrossFit affiliate. You know, the different things that they've done. Then obviously we don't need to talk about like the fucking tragedy that happened this year, but like they just got so far outside of the box with some of this stuff that it just became hard for anybody, even me, who was a big CrossFit guy for a very, very long time, you know, competing and watching the sport, to fully be like, yeah, that's cool. It's not really what we do at all, though. You know, it was very strange. Like, how do you train for that? If your sport is CrossFit and you're training with CrossFit, how do you train for something that obviously has so many elements or variables outside of what you do? And I get it. That's kind of like the thing. This training
That's
gets
like
you
the
ready
thing.
for that. But it's not the thing.
Well,
It's
I think
not.
they just need to recalibrate what the goal of the games is, right? Is it to test like the fittest on earth, or is it the CrossFit Games, or where the parameters at, right? And I mean, I think they should have had like 50 events and just like picked 10 of them every year to test. And this way there could be a streamlined approach to all of them, but it
Sure.
still has that variance to keep it interesting, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, dude, HYROX is a perfect example of how a repeatable model cannot be boring. I mean, Gabe's done two. I know, I know multiple people that have done a bunch, and I'm planning on doing, I think, two more this year. I'm definitely doing Anaheim with Ashley as pairs, and I plan to do Dallas also. So
It's varied enough within
it's
the
fun.
race where it's like it's a workout for people, right? Like, it's a good workout. It
Yeah.
doesn't take a hell of a long time to do, you know, and I think that they, for the most part, pretty much nailed it with the movement standards. You know, the wall balls get a lot of hate from some of our friends out there. The wall ball reps get some hate, and they're going to clean up the sled stuff, but it's a pretty solid race through and through.
You know, the other thing I've mentioned on the podcast before, and something that happened at the HYROX World Championship reminded me of this. I think another thing that would always have benefited the CrossFit Games popularity, and they just never leaned into it, because I think, you know, almost this like community aspect, cheering for the guy in last place, was like, it was almost like too much in that direction, was like having a bad guy. Like, sports there's a reason the WWE is as successful
100%.
it is, even though everyone knows that it's fake. It's because there is a villain, there is a story, and you have someone you cheer for and someone to cheer against, and it's very clear. And to me, it always seemed like a disservice to the sport that everyone was so rah, good spirits, so on and so forth. I get that that's a part of the community, but one thing that happened at the HYROX World Championship, I sent Liz the video, was they had a relay championship of like the different countries, and USA won, but they got disqualified because Hunter McIntyre threw an elbow, like an egregious elbow in the middle of the running course. Check the video out. And this is against like one of the guys in Ireland, but he didn't really try and like knock him out of the course. And,
Hunter.
you know, like
Get out of my way.
Hunter McIntyre, like I know some people really don't like him.
Oh, that's a pretty bad one.
That was a flagrant foul.
Oh,
Hunter.
dude, of course. There's
That was
like
a flagrant foul
like
for sure.
no one was like, oh, the disqualification was like unwarranted. But like, to me, someone leaning into being that guy, like leaning into being the guy that like some people are really not going to like him because he does shit like this. He talks a bunch of smack. He has this podcast where he's like constantly talking smack,
Dude, that's
but
been
then he also
undefeated
goes
for
and
a
like
long
backs
time.
it up. I think is something that plays in HYROX's favor.
For sure.
Because there's going to be people there that are big Hunter fans, and there are going to be people there that are like just want to see him like get beat by anyone, and we're probably really happy that he came in second.
He's a nice
How much
guy.
did they win by, Gabe?
I don't know, but they got disqualified, so it wasn't like a time penalty. It was just like a disqualification.
So for those people who are just listening and not watching, I mean, it was like a legit check. Like that wasn't like a little like rubbing elbows in the corner. That was like straight up like a hockey check. Yeah. I'm surprised. Honestly, dude, I'm surprised that guy didn't fall because you're not expecting to get checked in the middle of a race. Like, I mean, shout out to the other dude who got hit.
MDV, to your point, like I've never met Hunter, but I'm sure he's like a super nice guy. And he posted something afterwards, like a picture with the guy that he pushed, just saying like, hey, got caught in the heat of the moment. Like we talked like all good, but he definitely leans into being that guy.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important. That's good. Like that's every sport needs that. And it's cool to watch. And like the fact that he's unapologetic, honestly, like I'm a Hunter fan. Like I want to see him do well, but I think that stuff's important. And CrossFit always seemed to like miss that a little bit. I think Ricky Garrard had an opportunity to be that guy after the test and stuff. But I think more of that would be good in the sport.
Well, you could say Ryan Fisher might have way back in the day.
Oh yeah,
when he like
Fisher way back
pushed,
in the day,
like,
bro, with the Dave Castro, with the Dave
when he
Castro
pushed.
incident.
Yeah, when he like pushed his judge or whatnot. But I mean,
I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, he told
But
the
that's the
judge he was
thing.
going to kill him.
That's a little different.
Lest we not forget the details.
that was a little probably
Little
over the top, but dude, I mean that's what sports need, and I think it's exciting to watch what's happening with HYROX. I'm really curious. Like I'm just an outsider, but I'm excited to do it. Like I know that Ashley and we have a group of friends that are really looking forward to it because it's right on the edge. It's right on the edge of like comfort. It's like, dude, I don't know if I could do that, but I could probably do it in 3 hours. Let me go do it, versus some of the CrossFit competitions were always a little bit too far out for some of the groups. So yeah, it's exciting times. I'm really looking forward to it.
One of the interesting parts about this, where it's like you have the good guys and the villains. Obviously, in WWE puts on a master class in creating
the horn, right? Isn't that what it's called? No, not the horn.
The horn. I don't know what you're talking about.
What's the bad guy called? It's called the
the heel. The heel.
The heel.
Yeah, the
heel.
So the heel. In wrestling terminology, you have faces who are the good guys, and then you have heels who are the bad guys, and they switch back and forth typically over their career. Not always, but they transition at times, right? Like you've seen people like Hulk Hogan famously was a face for most of his career, and then when he went to WCW, he became a heel, and he like got the NWO going. Anyway, like I'm not a huge wrestling like nerd, but I know enough about wrestling to be dangerous. But it's really hard when you're in a real sport and it's not just a personality that you're creating, right? Like it's not just, Hulk Hogan is Terry Balboa or Terry something or other. That's his real name. It's not, Hulk Hogan's not his real name. It's a character. But he has become Hulk Hogan over the course of his career. But in CrossFit, it's like, it's Jason Khalipa. It's like, he's got a family, he's got kids, he's got like a business to run outside of that. So yeah, if you're going to embrace that role of being like a bad guy or a villain, you also are taking that on as like your kind of real personality. And I know people can understand like, hey, this is the heat of the moment and all that kind of stuff. But the two guys that I think had the opportunity to be the bad guy, number one was Ricky Garrard because of the disqualification because of the steroids. And then number two, Noah Olsen always kind of had this like pretty boy kind of image that I think he could have played up and been like a little bit of like, the bad guy, like pretty boy Miami guy. But it's tough to be a villain when it's attached to your real name.
You know who could have also maybe played into it if they wanted to is Josh Bridges.
Oh, Josh 100%. He kind of did. Like Josh was right on the borderline always of being like, I don't give a fuck what's going on right now. And that was really cool about Josh competing, man. The smallest guy on the floor almost always and just dominating certain events.
Dude, so for everyone that's on the Train Hard app, right? We are reading the book, Let Them. I have it right here in my hand, and it is by Mel Robbins. So we are going to be having a call on July 11th to go over it. But so far, I'm not too far in because I'm kind of reading it with like purpose and slow, like 10 pages a day type of thing. But I love the idea. So if you guys haven't checked this out and you're a part of the Train Hard community, or even if you're not, go check out Let Them. It's a book by Mel Robbins, and essentially the theory is like, dude, like let them go do that thing. Like, you don't need to control everybody. You don't need to control everything. That's the theory. But I'm really early into it. How far are you into it, MDV?
I haven't even cracked the cover yet. We're supposed to start reading on it on the 15th, so I'll make up a few pages today. But I like the idea of that concept for sure. We should talk a little bit about, we wrapped up the Train Hard 45-day challenge on Father's Day, right? TH45 ended on Father's Day.
That's it, man.
Which was really incredible. 45 days.
Well, Gabe's still going, right?
I'm still going. I'm on day,
Gabe had to do
12. I'm on the redemption tour.
What day?
Have you been doing the burpees at night
Post-dinner
still?
burpees. Yeah, post-dinner. Post-dinner with the kids.
Okay. Yeah, I still kept going. I don't know how long I'm going to do them for, but I just kept going. I mean,
so
yeah,
a lot
good.
of cool takeaways from the challenge. The other thing is we have a wrap-up call. So if anyone's listening and is on the app, did the challenge, either way, you can access it on the app. We're going to have a wrap-up call on Friday at 7:30 Pacific, 9:30 Central. That'll be live, and you'll have access to the recording there as well. Super excited for that. We want to give a shout out some of the people that were super engaged in the community tab during that time. There's some awesome transformations that have come in and are still coming in. So also a reminder, if you haven't put in your after picture in the app, please make sure and go do that. You will be surprised by how much progress you've done. Even if you feel like you haven't, because you haven't been taking progress pictures every week, go and do it. I promise you, you will be so happy you did. But, one of the things that I've already seen in the community tab that makes me super excited, because you mentioned the burpee, so it reminds me, I've seen multiple comments of people that were like, man, like, I was like looking forward, like Father's Day, I was going to like crack a beer. I was going to like do the thing. Like, it's been 45 days. And I've seen multiple people now that were like, just like didn't need it. Like it wasn't even like I'm going to keep going. Like I'm going to keep white knuckling through this thing that I like previously enjoyed and I cut out for 45 days. It's just this like, which again has always been the intention with it being a part of like our nutrition protocol and being a part of this challenge, is resetting what moderation looks like. Because for so many guys, and like this is where I fell into like, hey, I don't drink anymore. It was never like a, hey, I'm not going to do this. It was, hey, Ariel's pregnant, she can't drink. We always used to have like a cocktail and a glass of wine when we went out for date night, and we continued to do date night through her pregnancy, but she wasn't drinking. And for me, it just kind of felt like a, hey, the least I can do here is, not enjoy this thing while she can't. So we just stopped doing it. Yeah. 9 months go by, baby comes, obviously a little while, then we go back to date night, and she was like, I don't feel like I need it anymore. And I was like, I honestly don't either. And that has stemmed into 3 years of not drinking. Feel great. I know that that's not a decision for everyone, but that's just how I got there. So it was cool to see people just, again, resetting what that moderation is, because I'm sure that the guys that said this aren't cutting it out forever, but just not this need of like, well, after 45 days, I'm going to do this because like, I've been like, white knuckling for so long. Has been cool to see, because that was always the intention. The intention is that like, this is something that, if you are going to do it, it should be in a moment where it actually elevates that moment and it's worth it and you actually want to do it. It should never be out of habit or out of just like, well, it's the weekend and what I do on the weekend is crack open a beer. Like if you want to do it, if you really want to do it, if you really want to enjoy the moment, great. But if not, then, it's, what's the point if it's not serving you? So
that's why I think 45 days was so good though. I think 45 days was perfect, Gabe, because like imagine if it had been 90. I actually think you would have had a little bit more of that white knuckle, right? You know what I'm saying? I think 45 was just enough for like, you finish, you're like, like I feel good about this. You know what I mean?
I think 45 was good as a minimum. I don't necessarily think that like anything longer would have been bad by any means, because again, like the point of people saying, hey, I didn't need it, I think that 45 days is enough to like build a habit, and then it almost feels easier. It almost gets easier. Again, it depends on like where you're coming from with these things. Like there's going to be a wide spectrum of like, hey, this was a big part of my life before and now I genuinely miss it. Like it's a big part of my social circles. It's a big part of like what my spouse likes to do. There's obviously spectrums there that will make this a little bit more challenging, less challenging. But I disagree. I don't necessarily think that longer would have necessarily made it harder. I think that people, build a habit, like reset that, and it almost gets easier past the 45 days. I think shorter would have been harder.
I think shorter wouldn't have ingrained the habits as deeply. You would have been in and out of this pretty fast. And that we were very intentional about why 45 days. Like we knew Gabe and I have both done 75 hard before. We've been through other challenges. Jay, I'm sure you've done 30-day challenges here and there in your life. But like when you get to day 30, that's usually when the thing starts to actually get a little bit challenging. When you get like a month into it, because you can ride the momentum of like, oh, I'm excited about this for like 3 weeks. And then after 3 weeks, something typically comes across your plate where you're like, fuck, I forgot about the burpees and it's 7:30 at night. And now what? Or, hey, I'm going out to dinner and I'm going out with some buddies who I haven't seen in a while and they don't know I'm doing this challenge and they're all ordering a beer and you're like, oh man, I haven't been drinking, but like I kind of forgot that I haven't been drinking. So I think 45 days was good as a minimum. I'm done with the challenge. Like the challenge is over for me. I'm not doing my burpees anymore. I'm not eliminating alcohol if I want to go out and I want to have a drink if I'm going on a date, or if somebody like we're hanging out, if I want to have a glass of wine, I'm going to do it. Alcohol has never called to me personally. Even like growing up when I was in like my quote unquote like more drinking years, I was always like 2 or 3 drinks max, maybe outside of that a few times. So it's not something that really is a crutch for me. I have other things for sure that are crutches for me. But I enjoy a nice glass of wine. So I'm right back to it, man. Like I'm looking forward to going to grab a bottle of wine and at some point having like one glass of a bottle of wine that I really, really want to try. And that's how alcohol is for me. It's just like, it's a really nice experience to try a new bottle of wine, to share it with somebody if I'm on a date or something like that. But I don't drink regularly. It's like, it doesn't even come into my mind Monday through Sunday on a lot of weeks. But if I do want to have it, I go have it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was great. I think it just reestablished, it reaffirmed kind of the relationship I wanted to have with it. I think the protein in the morning was probably the biggest thing for me personally. The burpees were pretty easy. The rest of the stuff was pretty straightforward. I think the protein in the morning really made me feel good, and it's something I'm going to continue with. So that for me was probably the biggest thing. And dude, watching the results in the app, watching the results in the community tab, like has been so meaningful.
Yeah, man.
Because 45 days is not a long time in the grand scheme of things. And you could see a lot of visible and also like emotional changes in these guys. I mean, dude, the response we're getting is insane. And so if you're out there right now and you're like kind of off the path and you want to get back on, dude, 45 days can, like, honestly, I really feel this way, can literally change the whole trajectory of what you're doing, because now we've seen it, we've proven it with these guys. I knew it was going to happen before that, but even now it's even more apparent to me.
Well, let's give a quick recap. We had like 500 plus dudes go through this thing, right? Mostly dudes. We had some strong women in the Train Hard community. We had some strong women do the challenge through and through, but around like 500, 550, 600 people went through this thing. We've had some amazing transformations physically for sure. You see people on day 1 to day 45, it looks like a different human being. But we also have, like Jay was saying, a lot of people who are in there commenting about how it's changed their life, their relationship with their spouse, how they have more energy, how they're feeling more like virile and going out there and wanting to get after it, which is really, really cool. But I got to give kudos to Gabe, because I probably would have added a few additional elements to this thing. I probably would have added a couple of things around it, but Gabe really pushed, and Jay was behind this too, to make it like super, super, super simple. So there were only 4 things that you had to do for this challenge. Number 1 was you had to work out or do something every day for 45 days. And following one of our Train Hard programs was recommended, but you had to work out every day. You had to do 45 burpees every day, no matter what. That was a non-starter that happens every single day throughout the challenge. It ended up being 2,025 burpees at the end. You had to have 45 or 50 grams of protein during your first meal, and then you had to cut out alcohol for 45 days completely. No alcohol whatsoever. That was it. That was it. That was the whole challenge. Nothing crazy beyond that, and the results are outstanding. Outstanding.
And even if you haven't participated, I hope that a takeaway that you get from hearing us talk about it and hearing all the results that people have gotten is that, and the reason simplicity was such a big piece of it, is people really put on a pedestal the amount of change that's required for them to make like significant progress in the right direction, whether it's changing body composition, improving their energy, getting a little bit fitter. You can do so much, so much by making these small tweaks and small changes and not having to, hey, I'm going to cut sugar. I'm going to start mindfulness practice, which I've never done before. I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to cut booze. I'm going to add all this protein. I'm going to make sure I get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And it's like, okay, those are all great things. And if you do all that, like you will see amazing results. But how many times have people listening like jumped into something like that? And the problem, and again, this was something that highlighted why I dropped off the burpees when I did. The problem with that is like you sign up for all those things, and even if you just fall short on one, like it kills the momentum, and all of a sudden it's so easy to be like, well, you know, like that's it, and you drop everything else. Whereas you set the standard, it sucks to say like set the standard that low, like that's not what it is, but just make it that simple that you can actually like stay with it for 45 days. You're going to get
Well,
so
I think
much
you're
more.
onto something though, Gabe. Like what you said about the burpees and like you failing the burpee or like, and then now restarting them is a really great analogy for the challenge because like once you stopped doing the burpees, did that kind of discourage you from doing the other things too? Just like, I mean, I know
It's
the other things are pretty easy for you, but you know what I'm saying?
yeah, it's tough to say because like you said, like everything else is like pretty much like I don't have to think about it. Like I don't drink protein in the morning is like that's just my breakfast. And I work out every day. So that's a little bit tough, but
But
I can totally see how that would be it.
well, no, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of the times with these challenges and what we want to do moving forward is keep them simple and concise because I hadn't thought of it until you just said it. It's like, dude, it's a snowball effect. And I would think about this back in the day when I first started the gym. You'd have a guy come in and be like, dude, what should I do to get super jacked super fast? You're like, well, dude, come in every day, do this, do this, do this. And they'd be there for like, what, 2 weeks? Then all of a sudden you never see them again. And I had to learn the hard way that like, dude, set the baseline as something that's like really manageable and then build your confidence from there. And so I'm thinking for our challenges moving forward, it's got to be the exact same thing, right? It's like, because if you fail one of them, you just say screw it, and then you probably just stop on all of them. But instead, you make it, you know what I mean, relatable that they can actually achieve them all.
I think you can do it both. I mean, obviously, you can do it both ways. You can do it both ways. 75 hard is extremely popular. I bet a lot of people fucking fail 75 hard. I bet people fail
Oh, yeah.
75 hard on day one more times than they've than not. It's very hard to do all that stuff. You have to be extremely disciplined. You also have to be extremely disciplined to do a challenge like we just did. But more so, it kind of fits into your life. What we understand here, I think, more than anything else, is that like, yeah, we want to do these things, but we understand that the men who are doing this with us, like, they have jobs, they have families, they have things that they're thinking about, they have stress outside of that. And I'm not saying that you can't do something that has more things on the checklist, but this was certainly enough to see significant change. And I tend to add a few additional things around these things because I like that. But what we saw was that many of the men who went through this had extreme transformations with doing a very simple list of 4 things, which is cool.
Let me ask both of you, because you mentioned like you like adding extra things to stuff like this. I mean, outside of challenges that we host, what does, giving yourself like a challenge, like what role does that play in your guys' day to day? Like, are you thinking about every month something that you're committing to changing a little bit differently? Is that something that you do a couple times a year? Like, do you guys think about that stuff at all with like behavior change and habits in terms of like, hey, this is what I'm committing to for X amount of time? I ask because that's been very helpful for me in the past. Like, I like giving myself a thing that I'm doing in a timeline. And I've done that for various different things that I've liked to change, whether it's like reading, whether it's like getting in the cold plunge, whether it's whatever it is. Do you guys do that? Is that something that like, or has it been more around the challenges that we've hosted and that's it?
I need to keep my mind and my body and my life very disciplined. I need to. It's an absolute must for me because if I don't, my mind goes to a lot of different places that I don't want it to go. It just has to be this way. I know there are things I have to do to feel and perform the way I want to feel and perform. And when I don't do them, I'm less happy, I'm less motivated, I feel more anxious. So for me, there's things like waking up and making sure that I read my daily Stoic every single day, no matter what. If I don't do it, I feel the day feels kind of off. And it literally takes, on a quick day, 1 or 2 minutes. So it's not like a huge barrier to entry here. I also am doing this daily 100 push-ups and squats. Not just push-ups, I'm adding PVC press in, but also squats. For me, these are just centering times or centering exercises that like, I know I want to move in the morning, but I don't like moving for workouts in the morning. I don't like getting after it super early like Jay does. It's just not my thing. I like to have a little bit of a slower morning and train a little later, but I do like to move. So whether it's doing the daily 100 and just kind of flowing through that and listening to some sort of music or some sort of podcast and getting my day going on the right direction, that works really well for me. So those two things, like making sure that I do something for my mental health and stability, and I do something for my physical health and stability every single day, no matter what. If I do those things, I feel like I'm on a really good path. When I fall off for multiple days, things can start to get a little bit more dicey for me.
What about you, Jay?
I mean, I like the idea of competition. You know, obviously I've committed myself to training early and training hard every day. That along with faith in the morning has been like a non-negotiable for me for like a long time. But I like the idea of setting up competitions. So like I'm delinquent on a jiu-jitsu competition and I have to sign one up. And I think subconsciously, I don't know why I haven't made the commitment yet. I think I've been debating if I want to go gi or no gi, kind of been waffling a little bit. But I got to just make the commitment and just go and do it. And that becomes the anchor, right? It's like, because think about all the things you're going to gain from that, especially a jiu-jitsu tournament that's so aggressive and so, there's just so many factors to it that becomes the anchor, right? And then obviously you have the HYROX, which is a little bit more chill, but that's what I'm doing. So I don't need a challenge because I have competitions.
So for me, like the anchor for me just becomes the quality of my life, the quality of my own thoughts and the calmness of my life. That for real, this is something that I've discovered in the past year, but mainly like 6 or 8 months, that these other things around it, like, hey, I am going to compete in something that I really care about coming up in August. I am putting my hat into the arena for that. I'm really
I saw that. I was going to talk to you about that.
Yeah, the World Body Surfing Championships. It's super, super fun for me. So, but really like fitness and this mindset stuff for me, it's just like, it's so much more important than like the competition. It just keeps me moving north. And over the past couple of years, I fucking have known what it's like to move south. It's not a fun direction. And I have so much empathy for people who are struggling with anxiety or depression or mental health issues, because, you know, I've had anxiety. Everybody has anxiety, I think, in different aspects of their life, in different things that come across their plates, different anxious periods. But I've had some anxiety through my life with like work and law school and stuff like that. And I always found a way to funnel it to different directions. But I had a few events that had happened over the past couple of years that just got to be too much. It was just too much for my brain to handle. And it sent me in a direction this way. And it's not as easy as just saying like, oh, snap out of it one day and you'll be fine. You really have to be intentional. At least I found you have to be intentional about doing the work, about really doing the work to get yourself to a better place. And for me, that meant like, if I didn't want to do something that I knew I should do, I just had to fucking do it. You got to wake up. You got to get out of bed. You have to read your book. You have to do your reps. Because if you just lay in bed for the next 3 hours and you don't get up and you just get up in time for your first meeting and then you feel like hell and you want to go back to bed, it's not a good place to be. At least for me, it was not a good place to be. So these things really helped me move this way, north again. And I just realized the importance of that for myself. So that's my whole little spiel, but yeah.
No, it's not a spiel. I think it's hugely important, especially for guys who are feeling that exact same way. It's hugely important. I think for me, the reason why I brought a competition is just like, it just gives me a little anchor throughout the year that I want to train towards, because I don't have that same, you know, I have like these things that kick off my day. I have all these different things, but these are more like, oh, okay, now I'm gonna get that little extra motivation to go do something, you know, it's just a little different.
You know, if I were to, I like what you said about like, you know, my anchor is my quality of life. And one thing that has become apparent for me, especially since we had kids, is like, if I'm going to set like a, you know, not to bring in, you know, terms that we use for work, but like a North Star metric for like what I am trying to improve that will improve everything else, is the quality of my relationship with Ariel. I think that like, that's something that to me spoke so strongly. I remember Peter Attia had a great video about this, and it was all about how once you have kids, many parents, not all, but many, their all their energy and focus goes to the kids at the expense of the marriage. And that's, you know, ironically, the worst thing you can do for the kids. Like what the kids need is a really strong relationship between you and mom, because then both of you will show up best for them. And if all the focus goes to them now, and you know, you kind of slip into this like more of a roommate relationship with your wife, that's the worst thing that ironically you're doing for your kids. So I remember that had a huge impact on me when we had our first kids. And that's been like my North Star with everything that I try and do. And it also impacts like the quality of my life, because if I am incredibly happy with Ariel and our relationship, and I feel like there's like not zero, because it's never zero, but we're keeping very minimum the conflict, the resentment, all the things that can absolutely start to bubble, especially with young kids involved, I do very well. Now, the signing up for a competition thing, that to me is just one of the things that like, I just show up better in the house if I know I'm working towards something, and I know that that makes me a better husband. But that to me has been like, you know, I love the way that you put it. But it's kind of like, if I were to say that what my North Star is, it's that. No.
Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome.
Well, I mean, because you have to have that on lock, right? Otherwise, everything else. I mean, because you start together and then you finish together, and like, and in between you have the children, which is great, right? But if you don't continue to have your relationship, then what are you going to have long term? I mean, we talk about that all the time, dude. I mean, it's hugely important. But yeah, I think, yeah.
Just one thing really quickly. Like if you're also like thinking how terrible you feel about your own self, whether it's things that are going on in your life that have taken you to a place that you're like, how did I even get here? Or you look in the mirror and you're just disappointed, or you're constantly tired, or like you have no energy, or whatever. You know, I think life can get in the way sometimes. It can feel like of like your best self. And for me, it was reflecting on the fact that it was like, I don't want to feel like this all the time. There's got to be a better way to feel than feel like this. And you know, mental health and these types of things are complex issues, and I would highly recommend talking to somebody if you are feeling this way. You know, talk to a licensed therapist, talk to a friend, whatever, but start to do the work. The sooner you can start to do the work, even if it's the most minimal. You know, I was talking to one of my friends about this, and it was like, if you get the slightest inkling to do something positive, you have to just do it. Whether that's, I'm going to take this dish and I'm going to move it from the dirty pile, I'm going to clean it and put it into the clean pile. That could be like the win for the day, like the most minimal thing. And then if you have like a bigger thing that comes into your head, be like, man, I feel like doing push-ups right now. Just get down on the ground and start doing push-ups. No matter where you're at, just start moving, because that mountain that you're building of this like mental struggle be so hard. But every time that you do something positive, it just kind of chips away at it. At least I found that. So that's my little like, advice. Anybody out there, if you're feeling that way, anything positive that comes into your brain to do that's different than the cycle, do it. Do it. And do it wherever you are.
Alex Harmozy had a really interesting take on a recent podcast that I've been thinking a lot about, and it's a little bit of a controversial take. He has a little bit of a controversial take on like mental health in general, but I pulled up the quote, is the single greatest skill you can develop is the ability to stay in a great mood in the absence of things to be in a great mood about. And he goes on to talk about how he's had like objectively a like pretty tough 2025, like some health issues with Layla, like the business. I think he said, and Jason, you can probably relate to this. He said that at the start of the year, at like in succession, he was dealing with 11 lawsuits. 11 lawsuits. Yeah. So he's been like, it's been a year. And, but he went on to tell this story, which I thought was super powerful, because he thinks in his mind a lot about like, okay, these are the things that are happening, but there's always things that could be happening that kind of put you into the perspective of like, this is fine. And I can be in a great mood in the absence of quote unquote things to be in a great mood about. And the story was Layla's been dealing with some health issues, right? Layla's his wife. So she goes in to get like a bunch of blood work or testing done or whatever. And she's having this delay and this trouble because the receptionist isn't there or something. And in the confusion of the text of her assistant trying to tell Alex, what's going on? She said she has cancer. And so
What?
I'll explain. So Alex, my wife has cancer, and he's just like has to like in the snowball of all these other things that are going on for him in 2025. This is the latest news he gets. He like absorbs it. He's like, all right, we're gonna deal with this head on, whatever. Finally gets to talk to Layla. It turns out that like in the confusion of the text messages, the reason that Layla's blood work was so delayed and she wasn't able to get into this stuff was actually because the receptionist at the place had been like diagnosed with cancer and like she wasn't able to be there. But in all of that, like all this like miscommunication and stuff, it came off as that. And so, and the funny part about this is Layla isn't even aware that he received that text because he was communicating with the assistant. So Layla doesn't even know. So Layla comes back and tells him about like this health issues that she does have, which isn't cancer, but you know, she's dealing with some stuff. He didn't go into it. And she's like really bummed and really upset. But Alex is just like over the moon. He's like just so happy. He's like so happy that yes, she's dealing with some issues, but they're very minor in comparison to like what he believed a couple hours ago, which is his wife was diagnosed with cancer. And like he told the story so much better than I'm doing it now, but like it was such a good like in the span of 2 moments with all these things that are like going wrong with the business and whatever, he was nothing but in like an elated mood because this thing that he believed was happening and he was like ready to deal with it head on turned to not actually be something that was happening. So anyway, it was on Chris Williamson's podcast if anyone wants to listen to it, but the story was powerful and really brought this point home. And I think that, you know, goes to perspective. And I know all this stuff is easier said than done, obviously. You know, if you're dealing with some really tough shit, it's a lot easier said than done to just be like, oh, let me think of worse shit and that's not happening and just be in a good mood. But it was a good, it's something I've been thinking a lot about. And the way he told that story, and I can't imagine him going through that was pretty powerful. So.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'm glad that obviously Alex's wife is not dealing with that, and Alex seems to have a good handle on things. I like his perspective on things. He's a no bullshit guy. The analogy that I really like about this stuff, though, is like imagine your mental health and well-being and physical health and well-being. It's like standing on the shore, right? Standing on the shore and you're just kind of watching the waves roll in, and you're cool. You're on the shore. You're good. Like you're not in the you're not in the riptide. You're not getting sucked out. You're not in the middle of like a heavy set and you can't breathe. You're on the shore and it's cool and you're good. The closer you are to shore, the easier it is to deal with all these types of things, right? Like if he's just waiting in the water out there and he's got these lawsuits going on, but his mind is still solid. He gets this text message. Maybe he still can see the shore. He can kind of like swim in. He's good. But sometimes, man, like what I realized about going through some of this stuff for the past 3 years is you can get pulled out, man. You can get pulled out pretty far from shore. And it's not like as easy as being like, oh, there's some good stuff that I can see here and I can get back to shore. Sometimes the shoreline is like, you don't know how far you are from shore. And things like therapy, things like talking to your friends, surrounding yourself, community, things, even going out to try stuff that I didn't necessarily get into, whether it's medication or all these, like those things are all tools. They're tools to help you not get any further out. And some of them are tools to get you closer to shore so that you can have the calm and peace of mind to be able to see, oh, I've got things over here that I can control and things over here I can't control. And maybe you are able to swim to shore at that point and get there and be like, oh, wow, I can be happy about the fact that my wife doesn't have this, you know, incredibly, this terrible diagnosis. I have so much more empathy, though, because I was one of those guys that was just like, oh, you know, you can choose. You can always make a choice. I still think you can choose. But there are definitely times that your brain doesn't even recognize that there's a choice. And that's really, really hard. And I can only now talk about it because I was there, where you don't even know that there's another choice. You're just so far out in the riptide of whatever's going on that the shore is just, you can see it, you can understand, you can go, hey, I understand what you're telling me. I get it. It's like, cool, the shoreline's there. If I swim to shore, I'm safe. I just can't swim to shore. I just can't do it. So you telling me to swim to shore is not doing anything for me right now. And that's the element of this that I have a lot more empathy for right now. It's like when you're really, really struggling and it's too far, you have to figure out how do you just start treading water because you don't want to drown. And that journey has been really helpful for me. Anyway, that's another.
Dude, no, I love that MDV.
analogy
I
of
think.
being unsure.
Well, no, I think in particular, you said something. You said, what'd you say? You said like if something comes in your mind that's like a positive thing, like moving a dish from like the dirty to clean or doing push-ups, just like do it. That's a cool like. Again, I have not gone through those experiences. I've gone through other experiences, but I think that that in particular is a really good takeaway because it's such a small, minor thing that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it compounds, right? And that's a huge, huge thing. And obviously, Gabe, I got to go check out that story because that's a really great. That's just a great example of perspective. That's all that is, right? Is like, dude, like all. I mean, yeah, I have countless stories of those things where I feel like, you're in the gutter, then you go see someone, some sick kid throwing up and, in cancer treatment, like, oh, okay, like, I get it now. But dude, guys, I think that this challenge was incredibly important. I think for a lot of guys, it hit the nail on the head for what MDV was referring to. Like it started to build that positive momentum in terms of like building their confidence, and they shared it. I found that what I saw even in like our community section was like guys like to get that like little bit of pure like like to be recognized that like their hard work is paying off. Like I think that there was something to that, and I feel like the community was feeding off each other, right? Like a guy would share something vulnerable or not, and dude, the community would just like rally around like, dude, awesome work. And I think for a lot of guys, they just want to be told that every now and then, like, hey, like, all right, good work. Now do it again,
Yeah.
So thank you to everybody who joined us on the challenge. We really, really appreciate it. By the way, before we close out, I do want to note, I did hang from a bar. Gabe got like 154 or something like that. So I got 155. No, I'm just kidding. I did not do very well. I blame it on the type of pull-up bar I had. I went for 1:20. It was really not good.
That's pretty bad.
So
yes, we have to, as Dennis would say, we were here. Print out the IG story, the scoreboard, and let's get it posted.
Dennis was
So
like
I took-
2 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, did you
I took
redo
last
it,
place.
MTV?
I redid it, but I only got a little bit north of what I had done. I want to redo it.
You got 140, right?
No,
MD?
I got like 157 my first try, and then like 206 or something like that my second try.
I think it was, dude. I think it was the
The
pull-up bar.
207 stands.
I think it was the pull-up bar. So I'm gonna try it again. I'm gonna use like 3 times chalk, and I'm gonna try a
didn't use
hook grip.
chalk, yeah.
I didn't use any chalk. So, but dude, it is an area of opportunity for me because ever since that cliffhanger challenge, right, where I was like holding like the 52-pound kettlebell, and I was having a hard time, like obviously hanging is very difficult for me. So it shows an area that I can get better at.
I don't know if your score is quite bad enough for like Jordan to ask, is that like clarify if it's a typo or not. That's always going to be the funniest story about
Dude.
Dennis's time.
Dennis's scores.
Dude, the 120 is pretty bad.
Jordan, who designs it, was like, wait, is this a typo? No, not a typo. Oh,
Dude.
by the way, quick side note, because this kind of has to do with our challenges. I had a friend come over. He's 22 and like super into CrossFit right now. It just shows you the levels of like fitness. But I was like, hey, do you want to do this max body weight lunge set? And so we redid that because we were filming the stuff for the Train Hard hoodie. So we did the max set body weight reverse lunge with a barbells. And the reason we did it too is we both weigh exactly the same. So we both did 175 on the bar. I went first. I did 50. Last time I did 47. I was pumped. He did 89.
No, stop it.
89.
Did you ask him how did he feel the next day?
He was going for 100. He was pretty sore, but like, he was pretty sore, but honestly, probably not as sore as I was. 22.
89?
89. Yeah, we have it on video. I'll share the video with you because we
Bro.
recorded some content for the apparel drop, which, stay tuned, is going to drop here. If you're live, it's going to drop pretty soon. If you're watching the recorded version, it's probably up on the site, so definitely go check it out. The hoodie is awesome.
Yeah, let's just state a fact here. This is the last workout hoodie that you'll need. The hoodie is amazing. It's got a high quality stitch across the front. It's just super minimal. It says Train Hard. I'm wearing it right now. It's got a great weight to it. I've already washed it. It kept its shape. It's amazing.
I love a
this
heavyweight hoodie.
Dude, the
love
hoodie is where it's at. The hoodie is
Dude,
so
Caden always wears his hood to school, so he's gonna love this one too. I keep telling him he can't wear it at school, but anyways. All right, Dennis Marshall jumping in here. So, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys, dude. If you've been, listening to the show for a while, you know that we are on a path to level up men. We are trying to build the most capable most just reaching their potential guys on the planet, and we need your help, right? So share this episode with a friend, get more people on the path. Make sure to check out the Train Hard app. It's in all the podcast show notes, because if you really want to engage the community that keeps you accountable, that's the best one that I've ever found. I mean, dude, the thread has just been, I mean, I know I'm biased, right? But the thread has been incredible. So make sure to check out the Train Hard app. Check out the hoodie when it drops. And Gabe looks like he's smiling, so I'm not quite sure what he's smiling about. But do you have any final words?
Dennis in the comments. I didn't know what you were saying about Dennis is in here, but I saw Dennis is watching the live stream, and in the comments just put a little first place medal.
First place medal. Oh, he put his
Dennis Marshall, first place. The DM man crushes it, and I took last place. All right, gentlemen. Well, until next week or until next episode, talk to you guys soon.